Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy J Rock. Today I'm gonna be hitting you with another X-Men review. Today we're gonna be reviewing X-Men Shattershot. Now we're gonna go based on the material on the hardcover. This covers two storylines: Shattershot and the Skinning of Souls. Now, Skinning of Souls is on the X-Men issues 17 through 24. That's all the stuff after Executioner Song. And Shattershot, it's a bunch of X-Men annuals, and that's what we're gonna be covering today. So we're gonna break it into two parts. This would be X-Men Annual, Uncanny X-Men Annual, X Factor Annual, and X Force Annual. It's all the 1992 annuals. Okay, so now the way we're gonna do this is we're gonna talk about the story. I'm gonna repeat it to you a little bit. Then at the end, we're gonna talk about my final thoughts, and then you could post in the comment sections what you thought about it if you read it before. The story takes place in the Mojoverse. That's where we start. So the main villain is gonna be, of course, Mojo, and we got this guy named the Toy Maker. I guess I like. There's this alien race called the Spineless. If you know who Mojo is, he's part of that race. They all look like him pretty much. They even enslave all these other races. It's kind of like the Roman times with the gladiators. They enslave them. They have them fight each other for sport, for our entertainment. So these guys they form a rebellions because they try to escape because they're slaves, right? They have to kind of like win their freedom, much like gladiators did back in the days. If they win the favor of the king, he might give them their freedom one day. So this has a modern twist though. While all this is going on, they actually have technology. So we actually have airwaves. It's actually recorded on TV like a sporting event. It's not just for the people that are there in the stadium. So this guy Toy Maker, he created a lot of these slaves somehow. He has something to do with it, but he can't quite remember what part he played. But he escapes through this time warp, and it goes through another dimension or whatever, and he lands where the X Men are. So I like to pick up on it, like somebody just arrived on Earth or whatever. They go look for him, and they're asking him questions like, "Who are you? Where do you come from?" Mojo finds out he's escaped, and he needs this guy Toy Maker for to like he's kind of like a scientist or whatever, so he needs him to do this experiment on some of these other people, right? So he sends a couple of his goons to go through the portal, go after him. Now that the X-Men are with Toymaker, they dispose of these goons fairly quick. They're like, what do you want with him? Who is he? We want answers. They're a bunch of B-list characters nobody's heard of, so they were no problem for the X-Men. They go back to Mojo with their tail tucked between their legs, talking about these other guys. The X Men are there. They're in this dimension. The X Men are legendary warriors. He's like, oh, I could use those guys as gladiators here. The ratings will go through the roof, right? So he wants to. So he's kind of pumped about this. He's like, let me send some of my best guys. None of these whack B-listers. So he sends a new squad in, and some of these guys look pretty dope. I like this devil guy with his red horns. He looks pretty wicked. The other ones are there's one that's like a bootleg knockoff of Blackheart. I kind of like him, but at the same time, it's like he's not the real deal. It's not Blackheart. The rest are kind of So now we got them in there. This next squad, they actually fare pretty well against the X-Men. They actually win the battle because they caught them off guard. So they're like, these X-Men in our dimension, they're legendary warriors, but they didn't live up to the hype. They were no problem. They actually win the fight. They get Toymaker, but right as they're gonna cross back through the portal to bring them back to Mojo, Bishop, boom, he shoots one of them, the main guy that opens up the portals, the guy that has that power. He shoots him, so in shooting him, they still cross through the portal, but like he loses concentration and whatnot. So I guess the portal closes, and Toymaker lands still back on the side where Earth is. He didn't go through the portal basically. So the X Men keep him. They still want to know more about him. Like, who are these guys? What's going on? And back on that I mentioned where Mojo's from, Mojo verse I believe it's called. He's like, oh, you guys came back empty-handed. They're like, oh, they're breaking it down to him what went down. And once they explain everything to him, he's like, "Oh, it is the X Men. They are legends in our world." So he could see how that could happen. He's like, "I gotta have to send my top warrior." So now he's bringing out the big guns. Spyro pops out. He's like, "I'm gonna send Spyro." Now there's a twist. Spyro's not gonna be willing to go to listen to his orders that easily because it turns out Spyro hates Mojo. Because here, this is the one interesting thing about this story. We get Spyro's origin, which I did not know it. Turns out she was in love with Longshot, and he was a character in the Mojoverse, the Mojo world, and he was dating Spyro. She was kind of like a regular human, and Mojo ran these experiments on her, and now she has 6 arms, and now she's like a legendary warrior with powers and so forth. And so she became deadly, but at the same time, it's not the life she wanted. So she has hate for Mojo. She ain't down with him, and that's where things got interesting. I was like, oh, like that's cool. We got the original Spyro, and we got models why she hates Mojo, and she hates being on Earth because I guess as some type of punishment, she could travel through portals and stuff, and as some type of punishment, they made her have to stay on Earth. So that's like her big punishment. It's like a jail to her. Like, oh, like I could travel all these galaxies and I gotta be here all the time. I can't leave. So we jump off to the next issue being the X Factor annual. Now here we got Miss Cooper being the leader of the X Factor. She comes out with this picture of Spiral. She goes, "We gotta look for this person for whatever reasons." And Miss Cooper comes out badass on this issue. She has like she's kind of like the leader of the X Factor, but here she's dressed up in a costume like a superhero suit, and she has this big fucking gun. Like she looks like she could be on the X Force team with Cable. She fit right in. So they go look for Spyro. Turns out Spyro is looking for Toymaker because she hates him. He's the one that did these experiments on her. Once she finds him, Toymaker saying they forced me to do it. They forced me. Mojo made me. So against my will, she's like, I don't give a fuck. You're still the one that did this to me. So she's gonna go after him. And right on time, the X Factor show up to save his ass. Now they're getting a big battle with her. They win, and that's when we find out her whole origin story here. So once they hear that Spyro and Toymaker both hate Mojo, they decide to work together. And the X Factor's like, all right, let them handle their own shit. That's their beef. So they're going back to their dimension to fix their own lives, right? Spyro and Toymaker cross to the dimension to go back to Mojoverse to kill Mojo. Once they get there, okay, so this is where it gets a little crazy. This is the last issue now, and this one is the X Force annual, being the most important one. They go back and things have all changed because in Mojoverse, people stay the same age. They age just as slow as we do, and time goes by a lot faster. So what was merely a few days here on Mojoverse, it was like years, right? So now all the other races took over the spot, and the spineless being the Mojo race, they're the slaves now, and now they got them fighting each other for sport and killing each other while all other races watch and get amused for fun, right? So Shatterstar now is running the show. He's in Mojo's position. So there's a story kind of like of the gladiators back in the gladiator days and Rome days and all that. The Egyptians, the Middle Easterners, the Romans. Everybody had slaves back then. Everybody, you had to fight for your freedom. It wasn't just given to you once you were captured, right? So this is kind of a take on that. Except here, Shatterstar is playing the Abraham Lincoln role. What I mean by that is he's the king. He's running the show, and you show here once they beat the Mojo people in one of these fights, they go, is it thumbs up or thumbs down? And you know what thumbs down mean in these gladiator sports means off with their head. And as Shatterstar's watching this, he's like, so we always do what the fans always dictate. If they say thumbs down, it's thumbs down, right? And he's like, yeah, I always give the fans what they want, but is that the right thing to do? And here's like, X-Men always does this, so we have to throw some of this in here. Is there's little morals to the story. We're talking about back on history where his right hand man is telling him, his advisor is telling him, yeah, we gotta keep this sport going. And he goes, we fought for our freedom, for equality. He goes, now that we got it and we're in power, we enslave the spineless people, right? The spineless race. And his right hand man tells him, yeah, that's the way things go. He goes, what about if we just freedom and we got equality? Because he goes, we didn't do equality. All we did is once we won, now we're doing the same to them. He goes, all we did is switch roles. This other character that's his advisor, he goes to talk to the council. It's a lot of people there, much like in politics here. That's how it was back then in the Roman times. If you remember, that's how they killed Caesar when he lost favor with everybody else. They all turned on him and stabbed him. So here, he talks to them and they're like, oh, he wants to give other people their freedom. Like, I don't think that's a good idea. They never gave us ours. So they start talking about when they were slaves, these Mojo people. He goes, and they never gave us our freedom. We fought for it until we turned the tide. He goes, so why should we just hand them theirs? If we do, they're just going to try to do that, enslave us all over again, right? So that was kind of an interesting debate they had going there. But at the end of the day, they were like Shattershot's his way of thinking is dangerous. So they're thinking they're gonna have to get rid of him because they don't want that, right? And he's just stressing out. What do I do? And you end up freeing them, and people are gonna turn on them because it was not a popular decision. But the way it happens is they're fighting, and Toy Maker and Spyro and everybody, when they come to the teleport, they're in the middle of the arena when people are fighting. So once he sees this, he's like, "This is my opportunity to free everybody and help these people." He helps them and so forth, right? So while all this fighting is going down, Shatterstar ends up having to fight his right hand man. So they're fighting. Shatterstar wins because he's a warrior. He got skills. The other guy's just kind of like a politician. So he easily beats him, right? Once he beats him, the people are like off with his head. Shatterstar does something interesting here. He always gives the people what they want, but for the first time, he doesn't. He doesn't chop off this guy's head. He doesn't chop off his head, but he hits the sword against the floor. He says, "No, all this killing and enslaving ends today." He lifts up his sword, like the movie Gladiator and so forth, and everybody cheers that. Like, "Oh, yeah, yeah." So everybody's with him. They're down with that idea after that fight, because he's popular and he just won a fight. So when you win a fight, everybody's rooting for you. When this happens, the issue kind of ends there, and you see Longshot. Now I believe Longshot is Shatterstar's older brother. He's there with a hoodie, much like Luke Skywalker, and he's there, and then he's amongst the crowd, right? And he takes off the hoodie and his Longshot, and he smiles like he's proud of his brother. I thought that was a nice little take, like on Star Wars, right there at the end. That was pretty cool. Overall, I thought this story was like very forgettable. You could easily skip through it. I felt it added nothing really. It was just there. The one thing I did like is I got to see Spyro's origin, but I feel like this origin might be in other issues. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure it's been told in other issues. And the main character here was basically Toy Maker, and how he's trying to go back in time and change the past and so forth. Outside of Cable and Terminator, I'm not a big fan of time travel in stories or movies. It's not my jam. And it can just make things more confusing. So I wasn't a fan of it here, and I'm not a fan of the Mojoverse. Mojo itself he's okay, but the Mojoverse, I've never been the biggest fan of it. And this is basically a Mojoverse story. And the Toy Maker character, he was okay. That's basically like I said. So I got to know a little bit about him. That was, I guess, some of the pros. But yeah, like I said, overall, this is something you don't really need to read. You could just skip through it. You got everything you need to know right here in this video, so you don't need to bother reading it. I just told you the story anyways. Alright guys, hopefully you liked this video. You got something out of it. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button. Other than that, go ahead and subscribe if you haven't, so you could stay tuned for the follow-up to this, meaning being the Skinning of Souls. It's gonna be X-Men issue 17 to 24. That covers the gap between Executioner's Song and going to Fatal Attractions. Okay guys, I'll check you guys out next time.